Okay, my friends, today we have to do an Oblivion birth signs tier list. And the reason that I got so suddenly inspired to do an Oblivion birth signs tier list is the amount of misinformation that I've seen online, the amount of incorrect rankings, bad takes that I have seen going on. So I want to address that with my own opinions. The thing that's really important that I want to talk about is how your build shapes as you play the game. A lot of these builds that people are using and a lot of these birth signs that people are using to support those builds don't actually make sense in the context of the game's mechanics. So I want to express my understanding of the game's mechanics and also how your birth sign affects your build. So it's really important. I'm just going to start ranking these guys, but I'm going to talk about the nitty-gritty details as we go. So I also might change the layout of this whole tier list. So I might immediately just start naming things here. So there's nothing better. That's a good way of putting it. D tier is going to be like, it's just literally worthless. Worthless, you basically have no sign. You basically have no birth sign in this version. I am going to put here useful early, useless late, because that's very important. A lot of these birth signs are going to fall under that category, so that's why I want to be very specific with having that in here. Because a lot of these are very good early and very bad late, and we'll get into that when we talk about the luck stat. Yeah, I'll probably say good, but outclassed here. Kind of bad over here. Okay, so starting off with the warrior birth sign, this is like the definition of it's useful early, but it's not useful late thing. Warrior birth sign. So strength and endurance fortified by 10 points each. For those who don't know, your total health is determined by your endurance, but your strength also determines your health. So if you want the highest amount of health to start, then the warrior birth sign is going to be the birth sign for you. Now, the reason why I say it's useful early and useless late with an attribute gaining sign is when you gain stats, it doesn't increase the maximum stats, and even if it did, most scaling in this game works from 0 to 100. So what that means is if you got your stats to go over 100 in any stat, it's pretty much useless because all of the math factors it as a ratio between 0 and 100. So you don't gain any benefits from having most stats beyond 100. There are some exceptions, like people did discover that if you do the power bash with a shield in the remaster specifically, then that continues to scale with your strength stat even beyond 100 and so on and so forth. But it's a great example of why if you're playing as an orc and you're using your berserker rage and you already have 100 strength, you're actually not gaining any effective strength in terms of damage except for your shield bash, because your blade and blunt is going to scale from your strength up to 100. It doesn't continue to scale after that. So the other thing too is with the new leveling system, you now gain a guaranteed 4 points in 3 stats, or 5 in 2 stats and 2 in another one. So you're guaranteeing yourself those 12 attribute points every single time. And what that means is by like kind of mid game, you have maxed out every single stat except luck. I'm going to talk about it when we get to the Thief Stone, but basically, which is going to be soon, basically the stats are going to affect your early game, which the early game is easy. This is the most important thing to think about, is the early game is a piece of cake in this game. You don't need to stress about making yourself powerful early because you're going to be. At level 1, you're very strong. The game gets harder later, so if you're trying to optimize your play experience and make it so that you have the easiest time you can with Oblivion, then you're not going to optimize for strength early. You're going to optimize for strength later on. The most important thing is going to be power later on at no cost. So any kind of attribute stone, like literally I'm just going to put all of them in here. Steed stone, you have the lady, wait, is that the right one? Nope, that's the complete wrong one. This is the lady. Here's the lady stone. There we are. So boom, there's your attribute gaining ones. And we're going to go ahead and put thief a little bit above. So we're going to talk about this. Good but outclassed doesn't exactly fit description wise. I'm just going to say good, and then it's good, but there's something wrong with it. So that's actually the perfect way to do A tier. It is perfect, but there's something wrong with it. So the Thief Stone gives you agility and speed. So like I'll quickly talk about each of these things that I just ranked. Steedstone gives you plus 20 speed. Again, you can just get speed later and you can max out all of your stats by like, I think it's like level 15 or 20 or something in that range, where you literally have 100 in every stat. So you just stop giving it M, or at least you have 100 in every stat that is relevant to your build. So really not relevant, any of these stat gain things. The reason the Thief Stone goes a little bit above is it gives you luck. Now here is the thing with luck. Luck is hard to level. So as you level up, it's going to be very hard to increase. But luck is the worst thing you could ever level. And I have to tell you, this is very important, because luck modifies the value of your skills. For every 4 points in luck you have, you get +1 to every skill in the game. That sounds amazing, but it's for every 4 points beyond 50. Your base is 50, which has no effect. And then from 54 specifically to 100, you start to see those bonuses to the other skills. Here's the problem. Every skill stops scaling at 100. Going beyond 100 doesn't give you anything for almost any skills. There's some very niche exceptions. I think something like athletics might increase a little bit, but fortifying your speed like all the way up isn't going to do you much. Like if you're looking at, let's say, 50 divided by 4, 12.5 levels. So I think your athletics is an exception. I'd have to double check, but whatever skill it is, you're getting 12.5 extra levels in your other skills. That's only going to matter before you reach 100 in those skills. And that's if you started the game with 100 luck. So you'd have to have 100 luck to get this little 12.5 bonus. So that's pretty pathetic. And for how much investment you have to put in, it's insane. And even if you're looking at endgame, like, oh, I want to max out all of my stats, it's pointless to do that because you're not actually gaining anything once all your skills are maxed out. So the Thief Stone have a very significant impact on your early game because it's going to increase like all of your skills by a pretty reasonable amount early on. But again, early game is the easiest part of Oblivion, so you really don't need to worry so much about that. So really big weakness there, but it is the best of all the attribute gaining stones because it has just the most wide range of application. It gives you the most total stats, it gives you the most effective level ups, it gives you the biggest impact on your early game. But again, the big thing with all of the stat boosting ones, but especially the Thief Stone, because luck falls off to having 0 effectiveness once all your skills are maxed out, is it's good early game and bad late game. And what you really want from your entire build in Oblivion is for your build to be strong late game and mid game. And you don't really have to worry in the early game because in the early game, the game's a piece of cake. It's super easy. So you're not going to have to worry about fighting little goblins or rats or whatever regardless. So early game benefits are worse than late game power. This is worthless. So this is the Shadow Stone. I'm just instantly going to put these two. Let's actually slow down a little bit. Shadow Stone's next. It gives you invincibility once a day for 60 seconds. There is literally, I think it's called a Doomstone. You can go and get this effect from it, and you can get a once a day power to do this exact effect at the start of the game at level 1. You don't need to do anything. You can just instantly get this. So is there any reason to have this? Absolutely not. You may as well count this as having no sign at all. Here's the tower. Okay, you get these once a day powers. Open a lock, and this reflect damage 5%. So it's better than the Shadow Stone because it actually does do something. It does give you access to the reflect damage effect in spell making, but you can easily reach 100% reflect damage, making you completely immune to all physical attacks except arrows, easily, without any spell making, enchanting, none of that, because all you need is the Eschewchan of Coral, or whatever that shield is called, Amulet of Axes, and Ring of Blades when you're a higher level, and you can find those easily at, there's this one cave, whatever, there's caves where you can easily go and just farm this stuff. These items respawn in these caves, and you get 100% reflect damage. Then you're immune to physical damage, and it's also very easy to also hit the 100% resist magic cap as well, thus making your character completely invisible. And if we're talking about optimizing, then you're not going to stray away from making your character literally indestructible. Now, if you want to make your build weaker, you can go ahead and not do that, but that is making your build weaker and therefore making this effect weaker. So the reflect damage is good, but 5% is nothing. And giving yourself access to this effect isn't worthwhile because the things you find in Oblivion, this is really cool about Oblivion compared to Skyrim, the things you find are often better than the things that you can make yourself. So basically there's kind of two paths to becoming an invincible god in this game. One is 100% chameleon and the other is 100% resist magic and reflect damage. In the case of the latter, you do have some weaknesses. You can still be killed by arrows. You can still be killed by like walking in lava, for example, because for some reason lava, I don't know why, but resist magic and spell absorption both fail to protect you from lava, so not sure what the deal is from that. And then another aspect too is if you're dealing physical damage, reflect damage gets past everything. There's no way to deal with reflect damage from opponents, and a few enemies do have reflect damage, namely the Fire Atronachs and the Clanfears that you can find in Oblivion Gates. But anyway, the whole thing, tower, pretty useless. It's better than the Shadowstone because it's not nothing, but it's pretty useless. And then the other thing is the open lock effect. Really easy to just grab yourself at level 10, the infinite lockpick, the skeleton key that just makes you unlock any lock, it doesn't matter. So opening an average lock as a spell, as a greater power, absolutely worthless. So let's have a look at the Serpent Stone. Here we go. Damage, health, untouch, cure poison, dispel, and then damage fatigue. So it's just a terrible once a day power. I'm going to put it in kind of bad because it's not absolutely useless. Something to bear in mind is spell effectiveness is a mechanic where if you're wearing armor, the highest spell effectiveness you can have is 95%. Any of these once a day powers are not affected by spell effectiveness. You always have 100% spell effectiveness with these powers. So you're going to get the full effect even if you're wearing heavy armor and you're not skilled in heavy armor and all that good stuff. It's not really that good. This isn't very useful. It's just doing some damage over time for 20 seconds. That is quite a bit of damage, but you have to have some patience, so it's 3 times 20 damage. If you wait a full minute, you've dealt 60 damage, which you can deal 60 damage like so easily in this game. If you just do like, I think 15 times 3, yeah, oh no, that's not gonna work. 20 times 3. Easily you can make a spell that's Fire, Frost, Shock damage in one spell that does 20 damage each, or even 10 damage over 2 seconds, and you're looking at dealing that much damage in literally 2 seconds for barely any magicka with a destruction spell. So really not that good. This is one of those things that falls off later in the game, and if something falls off later in the game, it's not really helping you, because what you want power for in this game is late game, because early game's easy, late game's hard. Ritual Stone, I literally forget what this does. It's another example of one of those stones where I'm like, what does this thing do? Because I never pick it and nobody ever picks it. Here's the ritual. Turn undead. This can be good, actually. So I'm going to say, yeah, I'm actually going to put this above the Thief Stone just for this. This is crazy. If you're looking at this and you're being like, why is the Ritual Stone like above the Thief Stone? This is why. Up to level 25. So you're not going to really encounter any enemy that is level 25 or above until you are yourself level 25 or above. There are some rare exceptions, but basically the enemy's level to you, so it's going to be really rare to encounter any enemy that is that high level. Because this effect is not affected by spell effectiveness, even if you make your own custom spell with Turn Undead, it's only going to... it'll be limited by your ability to cast that spell due to your armor, which, like, for example, if you get 95%. So, for example, if you're wearing heavy armor and you have enough skill with your heavy armor to take the minimum loss to your spell effectiveness, then you're looking at 25 times 0.95 gives you 23.75. So a level 25 undead would not be affected by a spell that you cast that is a custom spell you made that would do Turn Undead 25. However, this effect, because it's a once a day power, gets around that, and it always has 100% spell effectiveness regardless of any modifiers. So any level 25 thing, you can take like an Undead Lich and just make it a guaranteed kill because it cannot fight you for 30 seconds. Oh my gosh, it's multiple times per day at a cost of 40 magicka. That's actually crazy. So this makes you just roll undead no problem. The restore health thing is okay. So very good at dealing with undead enemies there. Next up we have, I believe that's the Lover Stone, which does a shitty paralysis effect if I'm not mistaken. Let's have a look here. Yeah, paralyzed 10 seconds on touch. You can just make a spell that just does this better, and damage fatigue on self, so that sucks. And that's it. So I'm gonna say that this is gonna go in kind of bad. It can take a while before you're able to get access to paralysis as an effect, and it's also commonly resisted as an effect. But this guy, Again, it's useful early game, and it gets replaced by your spells later game if you want to use paralysis at all. You honestly don't really need to use paralysis. You can usually just one-shot everything with weakness and destruction effects pretty reasonably. So again, if we're being optimal here, that's what we're looking at. So that's why I'm just like, you're using destruction to deal your damage, because that is optimal. So, you know, if you're going to rank these objectively for how good they are, you have to consider what is the best. That's where this guy stands, because it just gets replaced by spell effects, and you don't even particularly desire those spell effects anyway. So here we go with the first S tier placement. We're looking at the Mage Stone. Here is the Mage Stone. So it just literally gives you Fortify Magicka 50 points on self. So it just gives you 50 Magicka. So to me, the best possible setup you can do in the game is you literally play as the mage class, the pre-built mage class, because it just has all the mage skills. They're the easiest to level. You don't even need armor, because you're going to get 100% reflect damage from the Escutcheon of Coral, or whatever the hell it's called, Amulet of Axes, Ring of Blades, and then a Mundane Ring. With that as a Breton, you have 100% resist magic and 100% reflect damage on self. All melee hits that target you get reflected back to the attacker, and all magic attacks that target you do 0 damage because you have 100% resist. Also, any effects like paralysis, anything like that, will also be immune, because resist magic reduces the duration by 100%, so the duration will be 0 seconds, making you completely immune to all magic. In Skyrim, resist magic was worse than absorb spell, and the reason for that was there was a cap on resist magic, but in Oblivion there is no cap. It goes right up to 100, so you can become completely immune to magic. So why am I bringing that up? Because with the Mage Stone, it is a benefit. It's like the benefits of the attribute skills. Like, these guys give you Fortify Strength, Fortify Speed, all of this stuff. Basically what this is it's like Fortify Intelligence. Fortify Intelligence, I believe you get 2 Magicka for every 1 point in Intelligence, so at 100 Intelligence you should have 200 Magicka. This is giving you an extra 50 Magicka, just straight up. That's what Intelligence does as a stat. So this is like pretty close to 25 levels of stats that you gain, but it goes on top of the attribute gains you get on level up. Unlike all of these, your maximum stats don't get raised past 100 by any of these. But in the case of the mage, it does, because you're getting plus Magicka instead of plus Intelligence. If this was Fortify Intelligence 25 points, it would be in the same spot as these guys, useful early game and falls off later. But this is a bonus to your character that is permanent, has no downside, and gives you one of the most useful resources that the game has in existence. Magicka can turn into levels, because the more Magicka you spend, the faster you level up. Magicka can be healing, Magicka can be damage, Magicka can be bonus effects, like you can fortify your acrobatics 100 points with restoration, and then jump over any hill you want to jump over. You could fortify your strength 100 points and do a power bash, destroy stuff that way. Whatever you want to do, the Mage Stone is going to help you do it, and it is at no cost at all. So crazy. Next up we have the Lord. I'm going to put the Lord just underneath the Mage Stone. The Lord gives you 15% negation to physical and magical damage that comes your way. So with the Lord Stone, what ends up happening is you get 15% magic resist, which is great if you're not a Breton. Like, if you're not a Breton, it makes it that much easier for you to reach the resist magic cap. And if you are a Breton, then it ends up being useless when you get the Mundane Ring, but very useful before that, because with the Mundane Ring as a Breton, you hit 100% resist magic. The thing that remains useful no matter what you're doing is 15% armor rating. The way armor rating works is it is literally a percentage reduction of incoming damage. If it weren't capped at 85%, then you would be able to become 100% immune to all physical damage. But this gives you 15 armor, which is better than any early game heavy armor you could wear at the start. So it's a very huge bonus at the start, but it remains relevant all the way to the end of the game, because you have 15 extra % armor. You can hit the armor cap way sooner. So in the mid game and in the late game, this remains extremely valuable. The only time that the Lord Stone is worse than the Mage Stone is if you do get 100% reflect damage on self. The Lord Stone would not have any utility there because you're already immune to magic because you are playing as a Breton with the Mundane Ring, and you're already immune to physical damage because you have 100% reflect damage. Then the only thing that could possibly hit you would be arrows from bows, which honestly, not that big of a deal. So that would be the only time where the Lord is beaten by the mage. So then you could say, okay, the Lord's better than the mage. If you are going for that build, though, where you become completely invincible, which would be optimal, right? It would be optimal to become invincible, then the Mage Stone is going to win. Let's say you're doing 100% Chameleon, which is the other method to become completely invincible by being invisible. Again, the Mage Stone would win because you're just getting free points. We're going to get into some really controversial ones here with these two guys here. This is where my takes get spicy with both of these. These are both massively overrated, and this is what inspired me to make this list, is the fact that these two birth signs are rated so highly, and they're both the ones that come with downsides. And if you're being optimal, you don't need these, and also their downsides are a massive hindrance to you. I'm going to be controversial. I'm going to start with the Apprentice Stone, and I'm going to put it in kind of bad. So that is going to blow people's minds, and I'm sure you're writing an angry comment, but just hear me out first. Hear me out, okay? So the most deadly thing in this game is magic. Magic is going to kill you, like, easily. And then the next deadliest thing is going to be physical damage. So if the deadliest thing in the game is magic, giving yourself a weakness to magic is a very serious downside. And yes, this gives you 100 bonus magicka, which is pretty nice. That's very, very useful effect. But the cost is way too high on something like this. This is really fun, and if you have fun with something like this, just do it. Don't listen to me. I'm just telling you what is optimal. If you're being maximum efficiency, if you're doing everything to make yourself as absolutely broken as you can, and you don't care about doing like stuff like 100% reflect damage, 100% chameleon, or if you want to kind of hedge your bets per se and you want to not exactly make yourself totally invincible, you could do something like max out your armor rating and go with 100% immunity to magic using resist magic, or you could put yourself to like 85% resist magic, maybe 85 armor rating, and then you're really, really tanky. That would be like not broken, but still extremely powerful. If you want to do that stuff, this gets in the way of doing it. Weakness to magic is crazy because magic is the strongest thing in Oblivion, both for the player and your opponents. If you have this thing on and you're playing as like a high elf, you will get one-shot by those little Oblivion landmines that are in the Oblivion gates that just pop up and they auto-target you. So even with 100% chameleon, those still target you, will one-shot you. So this is something that even if you make yourself invincible with 100% chameleon, you are going to have trouble with those one-shotting you even though you're supposed to be invincible. It also prevents you from becoming invincible via resist magic because you have a weakness to magic. So it's going to be possible, but it's going to take insane investment from you late game to actually bring your resistance to magicka up to the point that it should be at if you do choose this. So this really hurts your build in a big way. The 100 extra magicka is cool and all, but you can get loads of magicka from enchanting. You can get loads of magicka from just playing as a Breton and picking the mage sign, and you don't have this massive weakness. If it was something less, like 50% weakness to magicka, it would maybe be a lot higher, but this is such a huge downside. Again, it's really fun. It's really fun to be like, oh, I have this extra magic pool, but I have this weakness. This isn't a fun tier list. This is a tier list on effectiveness. And in terms of effectiveness, this is a huge nerf to your character, a very huge nerf to your character. It does have upside, so it's not the equivalent of having no sign, but it is going to go in the top of C tier for those reasons. Next up, we have the Atronach Stone. This is the most controversial thing. I'm going to put it at the top of its good but. So I would say it's the third best stone you could go with in the game. So important to make it distinct from the Skyrim Atronach Stone. The Skyrim Atronach Stone gave you 50% spell absorption, which is the same as this one, and it reduced your magicka regeneration by 50%, not 100%. It didn't, and this doesn't just reduce your magicka by 100%, your regeneration rate by 100%. It turns it off. It turns it off. So if you raise your magicka regeneration through any other means, that doesn't help you because your mana regeneration is off. It doesn't happen at all. You can rest in a bed, you don't regain magicka, whatever you want to do. Now, there's ways around that. Alchemy is a really easy way around that. You can make potions that restore your magicka, but that's going to be a constant inconvenience that you're going to have to deal with, and it's going to make the game grindier, especially your mid-game. Your mid-game, you're going to be grinding alchemy until it hits 100, because you need alchemy to be at 100 before you can actually, you know, have enough magicka for everything you'll ever need and not have to worry about it anymore. But then you still do have to worry about it anymore, because there is a limit on how much you can cast spells. At a certain point, you're going to have to go and farm alchemy ingredients, and it just makes the game more grindy and less fun to me personally for that reason. So the stunted magicka is a huge downside, unquestionably so. And then the next thing about the Atronach Stone is the part that's really overrated is the spell absorption. It gives you spell absorption 50 points. Now, we're going to talk Skyrim here. In Skyrim, there is no cap on spell absorption, but there is a cap on magic resistance. So what that means is, in Skyrim, spell absorption is better because you can reach spell absorption 100 by playing as a Necromage Vampire with the Atronach Stone and the Atronach perk from the Atronach skill tree. You can become completely immune to magic. Resist magic can't do that in Skyrim, but in Oblivion, resist magic can do that, and it does it like 10 times easier, because every single enchantment and every single effect you can get that has spell absorption is like twice as expensive as an effect that does resist magic in one single ring and one choice of race. If you choose to play as Breton and Mundane Ring, you're immune to magic. That's how easy that is. It's the easiest setup to become immune to magic ever. If you're using the Atronach Stone to say, oh, I'm immune to magic, you're stunting your magicka, so you no longer regenerate magicka, and then you are going out of your way to enchant like 4 to 5 pieces of gear with spell absorption, or you're casting a spell absorption spell while you have the Atronach Stone, so you don't regenerate that magicka unless you consume an item like a Welklin Stone or another potion. So it's a huge inconvenience. Now, 150 extra magicka is crazy good. So that's why it falls into the good but. And I do think it's the 3rd best stone in the game, but it has such significant downsides, and that's why I think it's really overrated. People don't realize that spell absorption is worse than resist magicka in Oblivion. They don't realize that the stunted magicka is a massive downside that involves tons of grinding for you. It just makes the game less fun. And I'm like, that's a downside, but we're talking about being optimal here. And the thing is with being optimal is you can reach 100% magic immunity with one enchantment with just playing as a Breton. Just grab one mundane ring and you're good to go. But if you want to reach 100% spell absorption using the Atronach Stone, you're going to have to deal with stunted magicka, and you're going to have to deal with, you have to equip like 4 or 5 enchantments in order to actually hit 100% spell absorption. So it's so expensive to deal with it. It's a big hassle. It's a big headache. But yes, it's very strong. It's very good to have that spell absorption. And, you know, you could play as a high elf and then get your spell absorption up with this, and that would result in the highest possible magicka total in the game, which is neat, but you don't need the max mana in the game. Having almost max mana in the game, like as a Breton with Mage, is actually a lot better, because you don't have to deal with all of these extra costs and these extra downsides. You just have more than enough mana to do anything you could ever want to do as a Breton with the Mage Stone. Why would you jump through all of these hoops just to have this extra effect? So it's very good and all that wonderful stuff. And some people find it fun. I gotta say, if this was a fun tier list, then Atronach Stone would be at the very bottom. It's the least fun stone you could ever pick. And the most fun would probably be the Apprentice, because that thing is a blast. But you can see basically the whole gist of this is these once-a-day powers are trash in the D tier, and you may as well not bother having them because they're easily replaced. Then you have like some attribute gaining stuff that falls off later in the game. Apprentice Stone, very cool effect, but unfortunately the weakness to magic is really significant in Oblivion, where magic is the best. Just basic stat gaining stuff here. Thief Stone gains you luck, so it's really good early game, but the problem is that later in the game, that's not as useful. Then you have this guy, which gives you a once-a-day power to turn undead, which can be very useful in a niche situation. So it's very niche, and that's why it's good, but... And then you have the Atronach Stone with its downside, and then you just have 15% less damage taken from all sources and plus 50 magicka These guys in the S tier, they do something for you at no cost, and the thing that they do for you is ridiculously strong. This is 25 points of intelligence, but it stacks beyond your 100 points of intelligence, and this guy right here is 15% damage negation for your entire playthrough from level 1 all the way to max level. Absolutely insane. If you want to be a tank, this is the way to go. If you make yourself invincible by any means, then this is just the best thing ever. So yeah, this is my tier list based off of things being optimal. If you're playing suboptimally, this whole thing changes, but this is if things are optimal. So thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and give me a comment down below. Tell me what you think of this list.